What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of NFT Pirates. I got my main man here from sunny California, me, Vita, Vivi, Dino. This guy, man, he's so good. He's got so many unique videos. He's so composed. He does a lot of diaries and like kind of documents what's happening. So in real time, sort of look back. He also had a lot of little viral videos and some stuff like, what I wish I knew about Vivi. So we're here today to bring you the goods and to chat about everything. So what's up, dude?
What's up, Chad? It's an honor to be aboard the NFT pirate ship. I appreciate you having me.
Bro, thanks, man. I'm not gonna lie, I'm hugely jealous of your backdrop. I don't know if you've seen Toronto, but it's rains most of the time. We got 2 months a year where it's sunny, so this is nice.
Dude, I've been there and I visited some family in the summertime and just got completely eaten alive by mosquitoes. So it's definitely back east is not for me. I like the dry weather here.
No kidding,
Uh,
man. Yeah, we literally have, July and August, and then it's back to getting cold, and it's just like 10 months of hell. And then, so even now it's like, what is it? It's May, and I'm still wearing a huge sweater, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Inside.
yeah. No, I got family in Chicago, so they could sympathize. And
Oh, there we go.
I've been back and visited in the wintertime, and it is brutal, like below zero. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough, but there's a different breed out there. You guys are a lot tougher. We're kind of sissies out here in California.
Yeah, we're true collectors out here, bro. No, I'm
Yeah.
just and man, like I just want to say, I really enjoy your content. I love the way how composed you are and just like the way that you present information. And I feel like you just like work through everything like in a really kind of like organized manner. And we were kind of chatting before this, and I was just kind of curious, like to pick in your brain, like when did you get into crypto? Because like I feel like you weren't just one of these guys that saw VV and got into this stuff for the first time. Like you kind of knew about this space like way back, right? You're even telling me you were buying like Bitcoin early and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I talk about it in my first Fiery entry, but yeah, I bought Bitcoin in 2016. I just felt like some shady stuff was going on with the dollar, and so I was just looking to hedge some of my money that was in the bank account or even in my retirement fund. I took my retirement fund out and bought some Bitcoin and getting some gold and silver and stuff like that, just trying to hedge my money. And so yeah, Bitcoin was like 700 bucks back then, and I got a few of them, and
Wow.
I definitely made some very poor trades, but I wouldn't be where I am as far as financially without that initial purchase. So
Good for you, man. It takes the courage to do that though, right? Like not
dude,
everybody wasn't buying it.
it was scary. It was super
Yeah.
scary, and especially like I told my dad about it and
Yeah.
telling him to get on board, and he goes, "No, that's fake money. You're wasting your money." And I didn't really have a lot of money, and I still don't. But it's just I was really convinced that that was going to be the future, and so
Right.
I even had 20 Ethereum back when it was like $9, and I saw a video of some guy fudding it, and I sold them all, and it's just like, oh, I've made so many dumb mistakes, but just being there that early and seeing the vision from the start has really just helped to this point to adopting NFTs a lot easier.
Wow. Man, and I could imagine like that knowledge is almost invaluable because you've seen when these things are like, fudded at their maximal point and nobody cares and everyone's saying sell. And now VV, maybe you get a 50% reduction, but you're thinking like maybe, I've seen it crash before and come right back up. So that must be nice for you, right? Because you're probably sitting in a place where you're like feeling confident still.
Oh yeah, I mean, I rode Bitcoin up to 20K and then watched it crash to 3. And
Wow.
I had a lot of people like, yeah, I was telling people at 5, 6K, you should invest in this. And they were just my champion at first. And then when it crashed, they're like, oh, what happened? Are you still invested in Bitcoin? Do you still believe in it? I'm like, yeah, nothing's changed for me. It's just the cycle. What I really wish I would have done is taken some profits up at, I'm never going to time the top perfect, but at least take
Yeah.
some profits as I see a freaking 100x, or whatever. But
Yeah.
I'm a hodler at heart, and I do that with Vivi too. I mean, I I have a lot of the collectibles that I bought from way back in the beginning, and they might not be the most valuable, but I just hold on to them because a little bit of sentimental value. And it's just my style
Mhm.
to hold on. If I'm going to buy something for the long term, I'm going to hold on to it. Um, I'm not going to just panic sell.
Right, right. That's so smart, man. And I know you got like your Todd for like 350, which is just insane, right? Like it's still like a 10x.
Yeah, it's not retail, but it's the best I could do. And
Yeah.
when the market opened up, that's it was lower than that, but it was just one of those things that how much money do I want to put in so early and things like that.
Yeah.
But I was grateful enough to get some Harley Quinns at retail and some Jokers at retail. Like those are like my sentimental grails, because I was like, okay, Todd's gone, the first appearance of Batman's gone, but I still understood the importance of first appearance, and
Right.
so I got the Harley Quinns and Jokers, and even though I'm not a stacker, I stacked a handful of each of those just with the little money I had.
So good, man. And it's amazing to see now, like how many people are impatient, right? Like they came in November and then like January was like the big sell off. And then now they're like, the project's done. And it's like, it's been like, you might have been, majority of people have been here 4 months, you know? So this is why I'm glad that you're documenting a lot of this stuff, because people can actually see these cycles and see where we were and see things fall. And like, and I guess with Bitcoin, like, did you sell, or are you still holding a lot of your crypto?
Oh, I still have quite a bit of crypto. I
Yeah.
I definitely diversified away from Bitcoin just because
Mhm.
I wanted to make up some of those gains. And there's just projects that I believe in more.
Yeah.
But OMI is a big part of my portfolio as well, and I'm hodling that, no doubt. And the very first OMI I bought was at a penny. So we're
Yeah.
but I bought all the way down, and I'm still going to be buying to this day. So it's just reallocating the crypto that I already had. And I've actually put some of it into Veve too. I have a BitPay debit card that I can load up.
Wow.
And so I've done some of that. So, crypto's definitely helped.
Yeah,
Uh,
no kidding, man. I mean,
yeah,
that's good. And a lot of people don't have that knowledge. Like what I find Vivi's done is because they simplified it so much, a lot of the people that are coming in aren't necessarily crypto savvy, investing savvy, or anything like that. They're seeing like these characters, they get emotional, they FOMO in at the top. And I think what most people are scared of is like if you don't like if you let's say sell something when it's at the top, you're worried that you'll never get a chance to get back at it. And you'll be like,
exactly.
shoot, I did have that when it was 80,000 and then I sold it and then it went to 180, right? Like it reminds me of a guy I knew. He has a Secret Spider-Man at 17K and he thought that was the top and he sold it and it went to 100. I mean, maybe, you could say those floors were artificial, but
Mhm.
like then it came back down to where it is now. So like even for him at the time, he was probably panicking and like, okay, maybe it's a little more expensive, but there's still a re-entry point. And I think that's the thing that are amazing about cycles when people start getting better at understanding the ups and downs is like, you kind of have to zig when they zag, like do what everybody else isn't doing. Like perfect example, like I sold my ultra rare comic yesterday. I got a
Oh,
415
damn.
off the
You got a
drop.
great one,
Yeah,
man.
I lucked out, man.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, bro. And yeah, so I sold it, and I'm not gonna lie, like afterwards, I was like, damn, like that was probably the wrong move. Like these look like they're gonna run up. And then today I was looking at the market, and I was like, there was some lower cereals that were cheaper than mine, and so
It's
it's just
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, right. So it's like when like that's the hard part is just being able to sit with that like gut punch and being like, okay, I think I made the right move.
Yeah. Oh, and what was I gonna say about yeah, my buddy and I both went for the lenticular card drop, and I got like a 150 something, or what was it? It was a very low digit, 3-digit mint of the Goofy, and
Oh,
he got a
nice.
Goofy as well, and he sold his right away for like 5K, and I'm still sitting on mine, and I could have easily sold it and bought back in at 800 or whatever it is now. But I
Right.
just was like, okay, there's something to be said about Genesis pieces, and I don't know how significant they're going to be, but for whatever reason, if I get something good, I just want to hold on to it.
Yeah.
But so many times I've watched where the smart thing to do would have been to sell it that day, the day we
Mhm.
got it, and then buy back in at a lower entry.
Right, right. And like you said, like following those patterns, like getting used to what the cycles are and understanding. Like I find now right after the drop, there's like a lot of FOMO because there's not enough being delivered. So
Yeah.
then anybody that sells right away generally for the most part, sells at a higher price point, then it comes back down. And then it looks as though people decide whether it's a grail or not, or they want to keep it. But then the inverse of that is like when you're sleeping and you're just liquid, and let's say you didn't hold the grails, and then like we've seen like in January where they like 3x almost overnight, right?
My
Like
worst fear, man.
partners, right?
That's my worst fear, that that these
Yeah.
prices will run away from me and I'll never be able to. And why didn't I buy when I had a chance? But
Yeah.
oftentimes that fear's never been realized. It's always been where I have another shot. And
Right.
it's nothing to be taken for granted. But at the same time, like you said, you're in this space long enough and you can pick up on some of the cycles and the market sentiment. And just right now, like there's no reason for a January boom, like at
Yeah.
this very moment in time, because
Right.
some of the things that we've been waiting for haven't happened yet. But
Yeah.
so you just, like, by keeping your ear to the streets, you're able to really get a feel for when it's bubbling up and when it's going to take off again. So that's something that I've learned, that when you're new and first coming in, it's just all overwhelming, and you don't have rational thoughts because you don't know like what the deal is. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's well said, man. And I know that now you're like more of a grail stacker, if I'm not wrong. You're like we talked, you got a pretty solid lineup. And I don't know about you, man, but like some of them, it's just so cool to think that you can have like the first ever Star Wars NFTs with the first ever Batman, with the first ever Superman. It's just like doesn't even feel real sometimes, like, you know?
seriously, it all under one app. That's what's nuts about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
This is all in one app. I bought some NFTs after I got exposed to Veve. I bought some NFTs on OpenSea, and dude, even being familiar with crypto, it was such a pain in the ass to figure all that out. And did my Coinbase wallet connect and all this other stuff. And Veve makes it so easy, and they have the best brands, and it's just a no-brainer to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, that's interesting that you say that with OpenSea, because I was thinking the same thing the other day. A lot of these guys that bought like Bored Apes or like Doodles or like, RFTK clones or any of these things, they like almost look at these people that are in like Terra Virtua, that are in Wax, that are in VV, that are in like, even now with Hero or whatever. Or actually, no, Hero's a little different because there is a bit of a process to it. But they look at us like we're just like these noobs that have no idea about blockchain, and they're like, well, you don't even know how to adjust like the slipping tolerance, or you don't even know about gas fees, or like, and they feel as though like that. And to be fair, like that decentralization aspect is probably a little bit more elaborate. But it's like at the end of the day, I feel like they're also by kind of discrediting us, that like these licensed NFTs, in my opinion, is like the next iteration. It's like the professional NFTs. It's almost like, right now it's just like the Wild West out there. And
Yeah.
now it's like there's this huge beast like slowly rising.
Yeah. I think it's funny that, they hate on kind of the centralized and mainstream thing so often. And, when I first got into this, decentralization was a huge reason why I got into it. But
Mm,
then there was also this notion that people wanted it to be mass adopted,
yeah.
but still maintain that decentralization. And that's just not how it works. And
Right.
so by talking down on some of the apps that are going to make NFTs actually mainstream, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot. And I think
Yeah.
it's only a matter of time before people realize that, okay, to get where, for this space to get where we all wanted it to be, it has to come through some regulation, some big players in the space that are more centralized. It's going to take a Disney to, it's going to take a Facebook to make metaverses a mainstream thing. It's not going to come through the crypto guys that are so niche and so like,
Wow.
I don't want to say cult like, but it's like, it's
Yeah.
kind of like your exclusive little club, and everybody else who's on the outside is kind of like you said, a noob, or uh, just not seeing the true purpose of it. So
Dude, that is like a mic drop statement, I think. Like I'm ready to friggin' drop, because like that's so accurate. Like I didn't really think about it like that, but it's like, what kind of grandma are you going to go to and be like, okay, so right now we're just going to deposit ETH into your hard wallet, and then from there we got to use this exchange. We just have to do these 3 passwords to get in and out. After that, you're going to go here. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like that, what a process. Now you say, go on your phone, press buy now, enter this URL. That's what's going to really, like you said, shift that entire sentiment. And it's like how like that accessibility part, I think, is going to get, and localization, like it's going to make
oh
this
yeah,
insane, right?
yeah. Well, and just to your point, I mean, I almost lost 2 Bitcoin because I stored it on a paper wallet
Mm,
and I forgot my seed phrase. So
holy
it was
shit,
a
dude.
it was a panic, dude. It was a panic for a good few weeks. And then I finally I typed in the right one, and I was just, so
Whoa.
imagine, and how many Bitcoin have been lost that will never be found again. you
I've
know.
heard that.
So, grandma, if she even knows what Ethereum is,
Yeah.
she's not going to be able to keep all that in mind. I mean,
Wow.
I think, like the Spider-Man movies, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah,
Right.
you have your own keys, that's your money, but at the
Mm,
same time, you're responsible for it. And if something, when people get scammed, or if they get their house robbed, and that flash drive is gone, your money's gone. And
right.
so it's kind of one of those things, like you take the good with the bad. If you want more responsibility, then you're going to have more freedom as well, but it works both ways.
Wow. I love that, man. And that's the kind of future I see. I feel like that is where you go to a movie theater, you automatically get airdrop something like, and it just becomes this mainstream kind of thing, right? You're going out for, dinner and you already have your tickets in there, but it's like, instead of it just being a reservation on some random website, it's like actually locked into a certain part, and
Mm-hmm.
like that's where the world's sentiment is completely changing. But it's like, am I a fanboy? Am I just dreaming this stuff up? Or is it because I'm so into this space that I'm actually seeing something that and that you're seeing something that we feel as though the majority of the population isn't? And that's the part to me where I'm like, maybe I'm crazy, or I don't
If
know.
you're crazy, I'm crazy too.
Yeah,
So
well, we're not fucking crazy, right?
no, man. Because I mean, I
Yeah,
thought I was crazy for buying crypto when I did, and
yeah,
people bought way earlier than I did. Imagine the
yeah,
vision, that
yeah.
they had. But we we're getting a sense of the world is changing, and
Mhm.
our economy is changing, the money is changing. And so yeah, in 2016 Bitcoin was a risky deal, and but now everybody knows what Bitcoin is. My dad's asking about it now. He
Right,
sees it on the news in the morning. So that's what's crazy about it, is we already have an example of how crypto has started to become mainstream, and NFTs is kind of the next iteration of that.
right, right.
So
Man, and it's like, then you look at Bored Apes and you're like seeing Elon Musk tweet about this stuff, and you're seeing like a $500,000 floor, and I'm like thinking to myself, damn, I wish I just minted like 3 apes back in the day. But
yeah.
I mean, that's a huge catalyst, like, to move everything else, right? And so
Plus,
yeah, did you get in on any of those projects? Like, did you get in on any of the PFP ones? Yeah,
no, Veve was my NFT debut.
yeah,
So
nice,
I still kind of didn't really, I don't know, something about JPEGs,
yeah,
I couldn't get on board, but Veve was a game changer, the quality of it,
right,
and being able to see it in AR. And that right there was, and had a feed, the feed is really bad, but to
yeah,
be able to post on the feed and have people like and comment on it, it was like, okay, this could be highly social, you
yeah.
know. But to your point about Bored Apes or CryptoPunks, celebrities are getting involved now. And if that's not going to show the masses that this is the future, I don't know what is.
Yeah, no kidding, man. And dude, you did a really cool video that I wanted to bring up, and it was kind of like, what I wish I knew about VV. And I was wondering if you can just kind of like elaborate, because you've been here early, and a lot of people watching now likely have come a lot later. Probably the majority. And so like, maybe you can break that down a little bit, and we can kind of discuss what first of all what you wish, and then maybe we can go back and forth and just say like,
Yeah.
what took so long, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I made that video because I figured there's going to be a lot more users. And like you said, as we go into the future, there are going to be more new users than OGs. It's just always going to be that way. People are going to be onboarded by the millions, and there's going to be people who come in and they have to get their feet wet in Vivi just like we did.
Yeah,
And it was tough. Like Vivi made it easy to a certain degree, but there was still a learning curve. And so I just figured, okay, let me just share my experience. I'm not an expert in this stuff or anything like that, but let me just share what I went through, and hopefully others who are new can pick up faster than I did. It wouldn't take months for new users to get familiar with the app and how it moves. Maybe it'll take weeks or days because they can watch a video and learn from my mistakes and just
right,
the things that I wish I knew. So I thought it was something really helpful. I like to make a lot of my content for new users because I don't want people to come into this app, lose their ass on something, and then leave and say Vivi sucks. I want
yeah,
I want people to really give it a fair shot and understand the lay of the land before they just write it off. And so
Mm.
I think the more that we can help new users familiarize with the app and just the market trends and certain like first appearances and kind of, because it's very overwhelming in the app,
Yeah, it
right?
is. It
Especially
is.
nowadays. And so just give people a sense of direction,
Right.
so that their experience is enjoyable.
It's really wise of you, man. And it's funny because I think, we've both been here so long that it doesn't seem like something that people need to know, because it just seems like it's almost like embedded knowledge now. Like it's almost like I'm hardwired with it. It's like, oh, that's a low man. And it's like, wait a second. Like if you're new to this app, you would never even you don't even know what the hell is going on. Right. But
Yeah.
it's just like we live and breathe it. And all these new people coming in are like having to catch up. And I remember back in the day, like people, like you even see it now all the time. People sell low mints at floor. Like consistently,
All the time. All the
right?
time.
And it's like there's just these snipers being like, sweet, I thanks, I just 3x, I just 4x. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like a guy sold the 1977 secret rare comic for 5k.
The Star Wars one?
The Star Wars, like not the guy that tweeted about it is the one that bought it for 5,000. But it's just like that guy probably thought like, man, imagine if somebody buys this for 5, or somebody, even though he might have listed it
They
for like
spent
80.
$7, right?
Yeah.
They spent $7 and they made 5K. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, that's pretty damn good, but
that's true.
they don't understand the value of what they're holding.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But
What did you do early on? Did you buy into popularity or scarcity? Because I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, like when you and I were here, I used to look up to the guys with the golden Mooglies and the silver Mooglies and the Donnies, and I was like, these guys are fucking ballers.
yeah, right.
And I thought they were so cool. And then meanwhile, like all the common stuff that was super popular were just sitting there, and there was only like a few dudes that stacked that stuff.
Yeah.
So were you one of the smarter ones, or were you like me and like chasing the scarcity?
Well, I think by necessity, I kind of went with the common stuff
Nice.
because just I didn't have like a good internet, so I wasn't able to get some of the rarer things, and so I kind of just accepted where I was at.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I got on the app, Rizzo's were gone,
Yeah.
Todd's were gone, and Robin gone, Nightwing, all that stuff's gone. So it was kind of like, okay, well, let me just get the Harley Quinns and the Jokers, and they're still great characters. And I did know early on that first appearance was huge, and so I kind of just focused on that and started to pick up on the trend that the common stuff is kind of the most popular,
Right.
and it's the low hanging fruit, and it may take longer for this to rise in price or whatever, or for people to appreciate it because there's so many additions, but the item is cool. And so eventually when we have, because I did say like, there's got to be one day when there's millions and millions of users and this stuff is going to be scarce.
Yeah.
But the super scarce stuff is going to be really, really scarce.
Right.
So I just kind of wrote that off in my mind, like I'm never going to get those anyways. I saw the prices they were going at, like Donnie's and stuff, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't even like Donnie. I don't even know who Donnie was. I didn't even know who he
Yeah.
was, but I was like, oh, isn't there like 150 of them?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, so I was like, ooh, that would be cool to have, but at the same time, I'm never going to get it. So I just
Right.
kind of focused on what I could. So it wasn't that I was wise or anything. It was just what I just worked with what I had.
Well, I mean, you're disciplined, right? That's also a nice, trait, because you could have been like, screw it, man, I'll put more money in. I want to get like one of these guys. And, I was one of those guys that I was like, okay, let me, I had all this liquidity from stuff that I bought, like you, like Common and whatever. And then I was like, okay, let me sell a lot of this stuff off to go get the Rizzo, to go get all these ones. And it's just funny looking back, because like Nightwing, back in the day when it first came out, was like 1K, and it's still like 1K like after a whole year.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's
dude, that was the thing to have back then.
That was the thing, right?
That was, yes.
And it's like so funny, because then Todd was like, whatever it was, like $90 in the store, and then that went to 14K. So it's just a really interesting concept. And I wonder if we did get like major millions, like potentially tens of millions, like maybe like, let's just say 15 million at the peak, if then those popular items would then just even be that much more insanely priced, And it's just like, and then when I start to like get like the volume starts to drop, it seems like then the scarcity aspect starts to matter a little more. I don't know.
I think the audience matters too, right? So I think as you've mentioned before, people who are kind of high profile and they want to stand out from the crowd, they're going to want the thing that's only 150 editions, because then it's a flex, like you've said before.
Yeah.
Whereas the common folk is going to want the popular character that they like. And what I always try to remind people is that it's demand and supply. It's not demand or supply. You know,
Right.
those two go together and it's an equation. So there might be a high supply of something, but if there's even more demand for that, then the supply doesn't look so massive anymore. It
Right.
starts to dwindle. A great example is I watched that common Spider-Man, which has 32,000 editions. It touched like 1.5K, and
Wow.
that was insane to me. Like that really was insane to me,
Yeah.
because they were going for $40 retail, and they were sitting below retail for the longest time, that anybody could have come in and said, I like Spider-Man, I'm going to buy this. And they would have experienced those type of gains. So,
Wow.
you know, it's just because Spider-Man is the most popular, and there's going to be people who come into this app and everybody knows who Spider-Man is,
Right.
but not everyone knows who Donnie is. You know what I mean? So it's not going to take as much for Donnie to rise, because there's not as many, but it's people come in the app, they're going to see
Yeah.
the popular stuff. That's the first thing they're going to see.
Man. It's funny. I got a lot of criticism actually on that because, what you're saying is brilliant, because a lot of guys like reached out to me. They're like, dude, instead of like buying a secret rare Spider-Man, like you should have just stacked commons when they were like 25. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, that probably would have been ideal, but it's hard to like, come up with the perfect equation, because like what I tell people as well is like with the more grail stuff, it's like social capital as well. I find like it
Yeah.
builds, like if I just had a ton of like cheap stuff, like not to say that I wouldn't have more money, but would I have like the clout? And I'm not saying I have clout. I'm just saying like if if we amplify this and I had like 100K subs, it would look cooler if I had some of the grail shit on Veve rather than just
100%.
like hundreds of stuff that's not necessarily worth a ton. So there's that flex aspect that kind of we talked about, but that in terms of ROI, that would have been the thing. Like it would have been cheap, popular stuff, right? I think.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
at least right now, I
Right.
think that like you have the best of every world with that SR Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, he's still an FA. He's still the
Right.
most popular character, coolest animation. Uh,
Yeah.
and there's only 1,000 of them. Like that's one of those pieces. That's why that's a top 3 collectible on the app, in my opinion, because that is not only a super popular character, but that's a super scarce and
Mm.
really cool collectible. I love those animated collectibles. It's really insane. Like the partners is awesome, but the fact that you could do a backflip with your Spider-Man, I
Yeah. Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that's
It's true.
epic. So I think that was a great piece.
Yeah.
Now, like you said, with the Donnies or like that Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 252, stuff like that.
Mm.
That's a little more of a gray area, and it's going to take some time to figure all that out. I don't
Right.
know,
Right.
but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. And like that's and like maybe that's the lowest minted comic book drop on VV of all time. And like, like that's where I'm like you said, it's a gray area. Like, it could pop one day and that scarcity could play a bigger component. But what you said, which was perfect, it's like supply demand. So it's popularity plus scarcity. That's really kind of the golden equation. And then as time progresses, then you get the big chunk of things, which is utility. So if you can have
Yeah.
that type of demand and supply, low supply, and then you have crazy utility added onto it, like at that point, man, you're laughing,
Which is anybody's guess right now. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't know when they're going to turn on the utility for any of these collectibles. I mean,
Right.
stuff like the DeLorean, we knew, but Disney can surprise us all tomorrow and do something epic, but we just don't know. So it's really hard to speculate. It is a big time gray area. And
Mm.
like you said, with the comic book, that's the most scarce comic book on the app right now. But what's to stop Vivi from doing that again with something else? And then
Exactly.
it just kind of dilutes the scarcity of it in a way. Yeah.
Well said. And that's what happened to me, because it was like I was doing that. Okay, this is the lowest minted thing we have, and then and then getting beaten out as like those low mint SR comics kept dropping at 250, 250, 250. And then
Mm-hmm.
now they're coming out and saying, hey, we're going to have one of one soon. And we're going to do like, so it's like, okay, so now I'm realizing that, popularity and these FAs are always going to be a one of one that can stand the test of time, but the scarcity is always going to be challenged. Right.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
And the other thing that I'm thinking about now is utility could also be always challenged, as like first appearance can't really change. It's a timestamp, but like
Mhm.
you can have great utility for like 3 years. Like, oh, we partnered with Cineplex, and now every Marvel movie, if you own like a Marvel NFT, you get in for free. Let's, hypothetically.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden they cancel the contract 3 years later, or Veve, like let's say, starts to dwindle down or whatever. Like that's like where my head's like, okay, what are the institutions going to do? Like when NFTs are so on top of it, because like first of all, people always like say, oh, the institutions are never going to invest. Like look at Bitcoin now, right? Like like they're saying it's going to go to 1 million by 2030. So it's like, NFTs are going to be a part of this equation, right? So yeah, man, it's
Well, yeah, we're seeing like the financial institutions holding Bitcoin.
right.
I'm seeing other crypto projects holding Bitcoin. So I think that will be the same thing with these NFTs. I mean, you don't think that Disney wants to hold some of their grail pieces? I mean,
Yeah,
or other companies want to come in and hold some of their liquidity in something that can appreciate in value and be something that will bring social capital. I mean, I think that can bring a company a lot of clout and a lot of attention by holding something like that too. So
right. Wow, that's another piece of it too. Yeah, exactly. Right. And like
mhm.
going to certain events in these metaverses with these different things there. And that's where, man, like, I'm not going to lie to you, like, utility is a difficult word for me. Like, everybody always uses utility. And I'm like, I can't really, like, I've got some ideas for utility. As an example, I just got one of those
Oh, the
back
back house, yeah.
house. Yeah. And
Mhm.
I blew it up, man. And I was like, this is actually the first video that I blew it up in. So I was like, I want to, feature it. But it was like, they got some sick utility coming. Like you can write like they're going to allow you to vote on a comic book story and then being able to
Mm.
kind of change the narrative. And then that actually gets published in like every comic book shop, wherever DC is. And so like we're a part of that journey, you know what I mean? Which is pretty sick.
That is super cool.
It's cool, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
that's something that my brain couldn't even have like wrapped my head around. I was like, oh, I couldn't even think of that. So like that's where it's going to be interesting in years to come, where these companies are going to design it. I think the easy one that everybody says is like, oh, Disney NFTs, Disney theme park, it's going to happen. But it's like, there's so many other things that I can't even think about right now that might happen for other NFTs, which could like skyrocket their value. Like what if like Logan Paul sponsors like, I don't know, like Lumpy Space Princess? Like what, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the key, right? We don't know.
Yeah.
And that's good. I want there to be an element of surprise. That's what makes this fun. You
Right.
know, when as an investor, it's a little frustrating because you're like, okay, I want to put my chips on the one that is going to be the most, the most successful, but we just don't know those things. But
Yeah.
we work with the information that we do have and just hope that these projects continue to surprise us in these nice, refreshing ways that make it fun. I mean, I
Mhm.
honestly, with a lot of the airdrops and things like that, I honestly don't feel like I missed out too much on some of them, but that's
Right.
just because I'm not passionate about the pieces to begin with, you
Mhm.
know? And so it's really more of like a perk for the faithful people who did hold, right? Like DC fans who bought a bat cow and get to participate in some of the things DC's doing, that's awesome. But if you don't care about DC, then you're like, oh, well, that's not the utility for me. But the fact of the matter is utility can be reinvented at any moment. The companies can just roll out something new,
Yeah.
and then the people who are true fans will be excited and be rewarded for having that. But
Mhm.
to speculate on it all the time, I just feel like you're playing a game of whack-a-mole. You just don't know what hole it's going to come out of, and you just don't know when or where or what kind of utility is going to come. So it's
Mhm.
hard to really put your finger on it.
Man, I love that. Yeah, and it sucks because it's like, people are always looking for those experts to be able to identify which NFTs are going to be, extremely valuable long term. And like you said, we draw parallels to physical collecting knowledge and different principles, but there's no way of actually knowing what the future holds. And I think a good testament to that is like right now, we're seeing all these huge licensed IP first time to the blockchain. And it looks like it matters to a lot of people. But my wife actually said this to me. She's like, why do you care so much about like Spider-Man and like Superman and all these things first to the blockchain? She's like, there should be way more significant when they first came out in a comic, because she's like, that's the first time somebody ever imagined it, the first time it ever came to be. She's like, if anything, she's like, Bored Apes could actually be way more valuable, because she's like, they're creating a new type of, you know, quote unquote superhero or like
Yeah.
huge franchise. And you're getting a part of that. And like maybe in, you know, 20 to 30 years from now, you know, people will always be going back and be like, oh, like Bored Ape is, you know, the first thing, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Hmm.
and so that's what, like, that's probably the biggest challenge I have, is like, what's actually like a reprint. That was actually my hesitation when Marvel 1 SR came out. Was I was like, okay, it was $6.99. It looked like a reprint. It looked kind of cheesy because it wasn't an augmented reality at first, and it had a huge run up already to 1.8K. So I was like, all right, you're already at like whatever 1000x. So I was like, this, no way this is going to go past 5. And I even understood the physical collecting thing, but I was like, you can go to Chapters and buy a comic for, you know, or like a book of the Marvel 1 for like $50. And I get it. Like, I get its ownership. I get it's like an NFT. I get it's this whole different thing. But it's like, will we ever get to the point where people actually see it as its own thing, that, or is it always going to be like, oh, that falls within the Marvel 1 SR, you know, it falls within the Marvel 1 comic. Like, it's never going to be like up here. It's just always going to be like a subset of this great entity. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough. And
Yeah.
just kind of touch on what you said a little earlier was, you know, with Gary Vee actually mentioned that about NFTs. He said, you know, comic books and cartoons and video games have created some of the characters that we know and love today. He said in the future, it'll be NFTs. And so I really, the
Ah,
NFTs introducing and creating. So it actually goes perfectly with what you and your wife said. Um,
right.
but as far as like, you know, the MC1 SR and stuff, this is the Marvel's first ever
Mm,
digital NFT comic, you know? So I
right.
think in that case, it's very special and unique. The SR looks pretty awesome. And, you know, it's like, I liked the cover right away, you know? And so,
Yes.
so not only does it look cool, not only is it the first ever SR from Marvel's, you know, NFT comic books, but you know, it's really scarce too.
Right.
But I know that there was some probably whale manipulation, like somebody must have stacked a bunch and drove the price up. But I see that being significant. I really
Mm,
do. And
same.
the blockchain is going to really, it's going to be everywhere. You know,
Mm,
it's going to change our lives just like the internet changed it. And so I do think there's significance in first appearance on the blockchain. Now, I don't know about, you know, that Hulk comic that came out, like, oh, that's the first time Hulk was,
okay.
you know,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
That's going
Right.
to be tough. If it's
Mm,
verifiable, if it's something, I mean, it's on the blockchain, but if it's like well recognized, then somebody can always point back to that and say, this is why this is important. But you still need people to buy into that and to care
dude,
about that.
that's so smart. Like, so here's where I kind of like, so first of all, I want to touch on Marvel 1, and then I'd like to kind of go into the first appearance thing, because I like, first of all, I don't think I used a good example. Like, I agree with you, Marvel 1. I mean, I think it's huge. Like, I think this is like, you know, just like how I see Spider-Man, because it was the first Marvel NFT, then it was the first Marvel comic NFT. And I think those are just huge time points because they're massive companies, right? So it's like when you go back and you look at all the NFTs that ever came out, like those things to me would just like kind of stand out from the rest of the pack. And then the other thing I wanted to pick your brain about is like, so my one of my friends, I said it on the last things, but a Comey homie is on Twitter. He's got this thing where he's like, you guys are not understanding Darth Vader, because he's like, or sorry, the comic that just dropped, the Star Wars comic #1, because he's like, okay, we had C3PO and we had R2D2, and they were just two characters, but he's like, this is the first time that the rest of the characters appear on the blockchain in any medium, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So even though it's coming through a comic book, it's still the first in any medium. And so he's like, that like could change the worth. But what Sean from Comics and Crypto, and even Sleeping Comics, I think, to say like, you need that movement, just like what you're saying, where people can get behind that and be like, no, I agree, like that's what's actually true. But it's like, in 20 years from now, I feel like that's going to be some shit that guys are going to really care about. Like, I don't know, like collectors are going to be like into that kind of stuff, you know?
Well, and that's the thing too, is that the people who do care about it can educate. I mean, all it takes
Yeah.
is Logan Paul, right? If he says this is important, guys, and here's why, now
Right.
millions of people think it's important. And
Right.
so I not only do I think it's important, but at the same time, I think that I can see why people would also think it's important. And
Mm.
so um, yeah, and with the Darth Vader thing, that's interesting. That's super interesting. I was already thinking, well, this is Star Wars' first NFT comic.
Yeah.
That's significant. And this is the first time the world, well, the film probably, I think it came out before the comic, but still in comic form, this is the first time we've seen Darth Vader and all
Right.
these amazing characters that people know and love today. So that right there in real life is significant.
Mm,
And now we're getting it as a first on the blockchain. So
yeah.
I think it's going to take people educating about it, but all it takes is one person to say this is important, and now everybody thinks it's important. And in the end of the day, you just need, if you're doing it for investment purposes, all you need is one person to care, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
One person to care enough, and they'll buy it, and then
Right.
you cashed in. So
Mm,
I think history is being made right now. I really do. Veve is making history, and that's something that is exciting to be a part of. So, just having these conversations and just putting our mind there is helpful, for the
yeah.
community, just to kind of grasp this stuff a little more clearly.
Right. Right. Man, and some of the stuff like Givenchy Pride, like it just shocks me sometimes. I'm like, man, that's 2.3K. Like I remember, I think it was August of last year, or yeah, I think it was, no, maybe a little bit after that, like September, it was like 8K, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where like it gets confusing, because I always thought, okay, like that's a pretty significant NFT in my opinion. Like I thought it would have stood out a little bit more, but it's like, how much will this current stuff that we see now, like partners and Marvel Comic One SR and whatever, like how much could that dwindle? And like what my thinking is like it wouldn't that much because of the significance. But it's like, what if they have like Cinderella with every other Disney princess like swinging around, like, one of seven, you know what I'm trying to say? And like the
Yeah.
utility is you get to meet like every Disney princess on ice. Like I don't know, like and this is where it could just keep one upping and one upping and one upping, and it's just like a constant movement to like, be on top. And that's why I also like staying liquid, because I'm just like, I don't know what the heck's dropping next week and what it's going to do. But like if I think about it mathematically, I'm like, okay, this does make sense. Like first Marvel NFT, first Disney NFT, first DC NFT, first Batman. I'm like, okay, like you can't just root that from history, right? I don't know.
There's a reason other companies are trying to claim that, right? Because it's
Yeah.
important.
Right.
That's a big time marketing thing for other people, is to say they had the first of something, because it matters.
Yeah.
Um, I think you're right that they can always come out with something that could be better, but that doesn't diminish the value of, the first ever Mickey Mouse or something like that. That doesn't change the fact that the things that we already have are significant for the reasons they're significant. It
Mhm.
just means that Veve's adding to their collection of amazing pieces that they're offering the public,
Right. Right.
So I guess if you're chasing the best NFT ever or whatever, then I think, okay, you're going to constantly be on the lookout for the next best thing. But when you consider what we already have, that there will never be a first appearance of Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse. That's already happened. So I
Yeah.
don't see that diminishing in terms of uh, standalone value. It might diminish in the fact that it's not the grail of grails, but it will never change the value of the actual NFT itself,
Mm,
because it's significant just for the reasons it's already significant. If that makes
interesting.
sense. I hope that makes sense.
No, it makes great sense. I love that. Yeah, you're right, man. And that makes me feel good, because I'm like we're saying the right things here. You know what I'm trying to say? Um, so here's another question for you. Big thing I talk about is like target demographic, right? Like I'm always thinking, right now in VV, we've got a lot of people that are into crypto, that are into NFTs and da da da. So kind of like you have like this, I guess like I'm stereotyping right now, but it's a lot of like males, like, middle-aged males, right? For the most part, I know there's a lot of females as well, but it seems, at least from my analytics, that there's fewer females involved.
Mm-hmm.
So then like when I think about like now, NFTs as a whole, I'm like, okay, when I look at Marvel Comics 1 SR, I would always think that would be like the ultimate grail on VV because of the scarcity, the popularity, what it means, etc. But then when I start thinking about like the influx of new users, so if I start thinking like Disney promotes it to like, let's say they're Disneyland, and all these people are coming in, what's going to be most significant is probably like partners, let's just say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now you have, let's say, the demographic within VV is like, 15 million people and like 10 million are like big Disney people, then all of a sudden now Partners is like $1 million NFT, and maybe Comic One SR is like 500K. I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating, but
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
yeah, but it's like we don't know who else, like who's coming in. That's what I'm like trying to understand. Like who the fuck is coming in here
Yeah.
that's gonna like first of all spend big money on this stuff. And maybe if we had all the Disney fans, like they would be like, look at Partners, be like, oh, I would never spend 10K. But maybe if we like really penetrated the comic book community, it's possible we could see prices supersede the real world. Like, so what do you have any thoughts around that? Because that's what keeps me up at night.
Yeah. Yeah. So I agree with that 100%, is that it's going to depend where does it come from? Right.
Yeah.
And so, but I think with how much Disney has already on the app and the pieces that they've shared with us already, they haven't even marketed yet. They haven't even sent people to Veve yet. So I think a lot of the Disney collectors will come in. I can see a lot of Marvel Comics collectors coming in too, if they appreciate this. I've from what I've heard, like some of them don't want anything to do with digital comic books. So it's kind of hard to know there, but I can totally see a bunch of Disney fans coming in and absolutely loving this. I can totally see a bunch of Marvel fans and especially Star Wars fans coming in. And I think what we don't want to do is look at the current prices and say, well, this piece is better than this piece, because the audience that we currently have on the app is not what it's going to be in a year. Once you start having Disney bring more users in, once you start having maybe car collectors start coming in because there's really cool cars that come out, or so there's just so many different ways that they can bring people in, which is one of the other amazing parts about that. But just I think that's when we have to use the real world and see, well, how many people love Disney? And I don't know what the metric is, but I don't know, followers on Twitter, or that's why I constantly reference that highest media franchise of list, because that gives us a good indication of where people have put their money throughout history. And so that's kind of what it's going to be is, well, which ones of these brands have the most incentive to bring people in?
Yeah.
And I think Disney has that. I think Marvel has that. I think Star Wars has that. DC seems like they're spreading it out. So DC fans might be on 5 different platforms. Whereas right now, Marvel and Disney and Star Wars is exclusive to Veve. And so they have incentive to bring them all to Veve.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I've been putting my chips.
Nice. Same. Yeah. Yeah. Man, I love that. Another question for you is like, okay, so, Vivi's big on equity, diversity, inclusion. They keep talking about how they want to kind of scale this out where everybody has a chance, everyone can collect, everyone can be a part of it. And that every player can win. So like, somebody with no money, somebody with a lot of money. And what's interesting now is we saw that like Star Wars comic, and the Secret Rare had 1800 editions, the Ultra Rare had 2400. And my thinking is like, holy shit, like if they did drop Amazing Fantasy 15, maybe it has 2400 editions as an SR, and maybe those 600 edition Grail things are never kind of seen again because they're kind of working more on this like equality thing. And then those become even more like, top end grails long term, because there's just such few made. And that was my original premise when I joined the app, was that's what they were going to do. Like we wouldn't see those scarce numbers, which is why I was chasing scarcity. But do you think that's feasible? Like, and do you think that's possible that Veve starts to move away from that?
I think that's primarily what they're going to do, but I just David throws some curveballs. He understands he does, man. He understands the value to collectors because he's a master collector himself.
Right.
And so he understands that scarcity is part of collecting and what makes something special. So yes, I do think they will continue to accommodate the amount of users that they have at that time. But I can see them throwing a few curveballs here and there. And so, but to know what those are, it's hard to say. But like for something like Amazing Fantasy 15, that makes a lot of sense that they know that Spider-Man is huge and that's his first appearance in real life. So yeah, that one will probably have a higher mint run, but it'll also have a higher demand too. So it might even out, like first appearance of like She-Hulk or something, it might have 250 of them, but is that really going to beat out first appearance of Spider-Man, you know? And so it's just, that's where you have to balance out the demand and supply again. But that's what makes like MC1 or Fantastic Four, SR, you know, that's scarce and popular and historically significant. Those are the ones. I think those will continue to separate themselves from the pack.
Right.
You know?
Right. Well said, man. And you know, it's funny seeing these price fluctuations, right? Like I think Marvel S1, Marvel 1 SR was like 70 something K like 3 weeks ago. Now it's down to like 33, and it just keeps, you know, it's frustrating to see, you know, such big swings, I guess, in the market. And I'm like hoping that long term we just kind of see a little more stability. Like if you wanted to buy into that, you kind of have to pay 80K or whatever it is. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Because I find like sometimes I'm just like, you know, I can understand why people panic because it's just like such huge swings. Like, right? Like, and it's like we could go back up to 100K tomorrow. I have no idea, and I'd believe it. It could also drop down to 20 tonight, and I'd understand. You know?
Yeah, totally. And that kind of comes with maturity in the market. I think right now, you know, whoever stacked a bunch or the group that stacked a bunch, and this is any collectible, right? And they see it for under 2K and they're like, dude, this is a crazy deal. I'm going to stack a ton of them.
Yeah.
As they slowly start to sell off over time, and as more people come on and say, this is my grail, I'm not selling this thing, that's when I think we'll start to see the price stabilize. Because right now, I don't want to use the word manipulated, but I just feel like it's too much in the hands of a few people. And there's some really, like, look at like a guy like Silicon having 150 Todds. I mean, he could make some waves just by himself, you know, just so as we start to get more unique users with their hands on this, that actually, you know, this is my one and only, and I'm not selling it for a while. I think that's when we'll start to see stability. But this is the same thing in crypto, you know. I'm seeing every year we're getting a little more stable. I mean, Bitcoin's been trading sideways for months. That was unheard of in 2017. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things that the market's going to need to mature, and more unique users are going to have to get their hands on this for it to see some of that stability.
Wow. I love what you brought up there, because for me, like this past year showed me how wrong people were. Like, because everybody was saying, okay, by October, this is when the huge bull is going to happen. And then by November, it's going to be at a peak. That's when you sell, and it'll go back down next year. Because like they just looked at history and they're like, see, it did this, did it again, and now it's going to do it again. Not realizing that, like you said, our world's like transitioning more into the crypto space. So we're not seeing such erratic behavior, you know, so in some aspects, especially on a lot of these altcoins you are, but, but you know,
always,
exactly. But not for like, you know, the top 10, let's just say, right? Like for a lot of them, they're starting to stabilize now. And like you said, like seeing Bitcoin pretty much be at the same price or lower than it was last year at this time, if I'm not wrong, right? I think it was like March was like,
I know it hit 60 at one point, and
it
feels like maybe 8 months ago, but I'm not sure. I have to look at the chart. But
it's funny. I got my parents into it, and like my dad was loving it because he got in last year. It was like, I forget when it was, like January or something, and like, you know, it was like almost a 2x, right, for whatever he put in. And I pulled it out the day before it crashed, like on that Sunday. I was like, just something just doesn't feel right, man. I was like, let me
take some profits.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I think it's time to take it out. And and everyone was like, you know, don't do that. Like, it's just gonna, this Bitcoin is gonna, and that's the whole thing I was saying, like the gut punch. Like when you know, you take it out and you're still seeing it go up for a few K, but you're like confident, you know, and like, thank God we did, because then it pretty much went back down to his original investment within like two days.
Yeah. And that's a gut punch in itself. When you realize, man, I could have sold right here and I had a gut feeling to do it, but I wrote it out, and now I'm kind of right back where I started. And it just depends what your goals are. It depends if you're in it for the long haul or if you're trying to make some quick bucks, and it's always going to be like that. But yeah, I mean, I think we're starting to see more stability as people are, as the infrastructure is being built out too. Like we are so early in Veve's infrastructure, but crypto, I mean, I remember it was a struggle to find like a reliable wallet back in 2016. Like I just stayed on Coinbase because I was like, I'm not gonna send my money to some random site. It felt random, you know. Or if I
Yeah.
wanted some altcoin, I'd have to go on some exchange that I never heard of before, and it was all sketchy, you know. So,
Right.
but now it's drastically different where we're seeing crypto.com on the Staples Center, you know what I mean? At, you know,
Yeah.
the LA
Yeah.
stadium. So it's like it's insane how much infrastructure has been built out. And
Mm.
I remember seeing that when Bitcoin dropped from 20 to 3. I I remember like just being fed up and just kind of saying, I'm hodling anyways. I'm going to walk away from this for a while. And when I came back, there was so much more infrastructure built than when I was doing
Wow.
it earlier. And so that's what kind of taught me like this is here to stay. And there's very smart people behind the scenes that are working every single day to make this a reality.
Mm.
And that's the same thing with Veve. We'll start to see some things level off more when there is some infrastructure in place that keep people holding instead of just speculating and selling.
Right. It's amazing that the same recurring principle I keep seeing in everything you're discussing is like, being almost like an early adopter, early innovator is like the people that like make the most money and do well, like going on those shitty exchanges and like trying your luck at the table and like just seeing if, it works out. And like, yeah, there's huge risk, but huge upside. And it kind of is like the same way with Veve right now. Like, we're in a bear market right now. The world's kind of changing. There's a lot of like people that are upset and sad and worried. And it's like, but if you're stocking the right thing, like when there's that next bull and it's like legitimate money, whether that's in this fall, next year, the year after that, like, that's when the real money comes out. And so I
Mm-hmm.
guess my question to you is like, is your goal like to like sell this off for like a huge chunk one day, or are you kind of like looking to stay within Veve and like, be part of the Veve verse and just kind of be an actual like collector, or is it more of like an ROI for you?
I think primarily it's an ROI, but
Yeah.
I really do uh, kind of like love the collectibles that I have, you know. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are a few pieces that I just won't sell for a very long time. And I'm really curious to see what the utility is going to be and just how Veve builds upon this. I really am looking forward to the day where Veve is a social app because I mean I made a Twitter for Veve, you know, and
Yeah.
it's something that I can like. I wouldn't need to go to all these different social apps. I would just need to go to Veve because I like the community and I like what I'm collecting. I like the content. I grew up on this content, so it's really fun, and I just want to enjoy that. But some of the things that I am stacking, I'm stacking because not only do I want to make an ROI, but because I could see other people really appreciating it when they buy it.
Yeah.
So I was very spread thin and all over the place in the beginning. And now I'm just like, okay, well, I really like Common Spider-Man. I'm going to get a few of them. You know what I mean?
Sweet.
Like
Yeah.
so that way I can sell 3 of them, make the profits that I want to, but also still enjoy the actual piece itself and hopefully be able to use them one day.
Right.
I really am looking forward to see what Veve does with like the showrooms, and I want to be able to go to your showroom and check out your collection. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I want
man.
to be able to go to somebody's profile page and send them a DM and say, hey, that's a nice such and such that you have. Do you want to make a trade? Or something more engaging. But right now it's kind of hard to do anything but think about the investment aspect of this,
Yeah.
because a lot of the things that are coming are not here yet, and we don't really have a good picture of what the Veve verse is going to look like or anything
Yeah.
like that. So it's kind of hard to know what it's going to be and if I should stick around for it.
I'm in the same boat as you, man. I think that's like, I think what you said is like really on point because like that's why I'm seeing it now. Like I used to think like, okay, we're going in the Veve verse and then this is going to happen and that's going to happen. But now I'm kind of like, okay, if it ever does go to $500,000, like what kind of impact could that have on my life, or, $1 million?
Yeah.
Like, and at that point, do I want to be sipping, margaritas in Barbados, or do I want to be like holding a, quote unquote JPEG for clout? Like, so
The
it's like,
first one. The first
yeah,
one.
exactly. Right. It's like, there's only so much you can do for me. Like and the cyberspace, as much as it's cool and it's fun, it's like, I'm not sure if I want that to be my day to day forever, right?
Yeah.
And I guess like what I wanted to ask you is, you know, like I want people to see us like we currently see Bored Ape holders. Like I want people to be like, holy shit, that guy's a fucking R2 holder, or that guy's a Darth Vader holder, or like that guy knew about Superman. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like these
Yeah.
clubs start to prevail. And that was kind of my vision early on. I remember I was talking to Johnny Dunn and we were like, dude, what if Superman goes to like 10K, and then it went to like whatever it went to, like 8 or 9.
Damn near close. Yeah.
Yeah, very close, right? And at the time it felt like there's no way. And now I'm kind of like, maybe that happens again.
Mhm.
Um, but like we're adapting into this new digital world, and it's like that may be the way that we interact. And if you're holding something that's like one of those best things in the world, I don't even know what that gets you. Like, could that get you free access to like dinners and clubs and like events and like all, like there's so many things that I don't know. Like maybe I'm just like, I don't think the whole world's gonna give a shit about mint number, you know what I'm trying to say? But I
Right.
think,
Yeah.
but who knows, right?
Well, I think hardcore collectors will,
Yeah,
and like you said, people who want to stand out from the rest of the crowd, that that low mint number is going to look really, really cool, and
right.
people are going to be like, "How did you get that? How much did you pay for that?"
Yeah,
Uh, and they're going to they want to be their friend because of it,
yeah,
So I think there is something to be said about that. But yeah, like you, man, I live in the physical world. I love the physical world.
I can tell by your
Obviously,
backyard.
yeah,
Yeah,
I spend I spend a lot of time in the garden, and I
yeah,
just what I want from the digital world is to supplement my physical life. I want
right.
to make my life easier. That's why I use a computer for my business and stuff like that, is because it makes my life easier and it
Yeah.
makes my life better and makes me more efficient. It allows me to do what I would do in the real world better.
Mm,
When it starts to become something where those lines are blurred, um, I've noticed that a lot of people are super excited to just jump right into a digital world and leave their
yeah,
physical life behind. And I'm worried about that,
right.
at least for myself. And I'm worried about that for kids too. I know, I mean, funny story. So a couple cousins are big time gamers, and they're like, dude, you need to get Minecraft. I was like, okay. And I downloaded Minecraft. I started playing it with them, and I literally was up till 8 a.m. the next day. I pulled an all-nighter, felt like crap. And I'm like, I don't even have an addictive personality. How did I just
Uh,
stay up all night playing this? So I can see how immersive and addicting it can be. And that worries me. And so for
true.
me, I have to keep a healthy distance because I don't want to fall into that. And just altruistically, I don't want others to fall into that either. But some
Mhm.
people are really excited about it, and it brings them great joy, and they want that, and that's cool for them. But
Right.
for me personally, I want to keep a healthy balance.
Wow, man, and that's such a huge topic to unravel, and I totally agree with you. I mean, like you look just from your picture, you look super healthy, bro. I'm like, I'm envious. I'm like, I want to be like, I want to feel as good as you do, but I went down that rabbit hole. Like I went way too hard into like VV, NFT, crypto, and so much so that it caused like like almost like relationship issues. I was like really unhealthy. The weight started to change. Like your whole lifestyle just gets undone. And then you can see how if you were to sustain that for like 5 to 7 years, that you can run into like real trouble. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like you said, it's like now for these young kids, we're like, not only are we encouraging it, it's like it's mandatory. It's like a necessity now. You must do this. You must be good at computers. You like it's almost like if you're not, like you're not human. And to adapt into this digital way of thinking after like hundreds of thousands of years of evolution in the physical world, it's like over the course of like 60 years we're like having these new expectations of humans. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look at some of the look at Wally, or look at Ready Player One, or
True.
Tron, or those type of things, and they're like, The Matrix is kind of my go-to, right? It's
Yeah,
it's like, I don't want to be just that guy sitting in a chair with a tube stuck to his neck and not knowing anything different.
yeah,
It's kind of, those movies kind of give us a glimpse of what could happen. I have optimism that it won't, that it won't go that far, and that it will be something that makes our lives better. But I wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way. And so I just
Right.
think it's something to think about for people before we get way too excited and just jump right in. Just think about it, weigh the
Yeah.
pros and cons, you know.
Right.
So,
Dude, listen, man. Like we've been chatting over an hour. I didn't even realize it because I was like, "This is
time
just."
flies, man.
Yeah, I was like, "This is a great conversation." So, I wanted to thank you personally for coming on today and kind of sharing your insight and knowledge. And be honest, man, I need to pick your brain more because I felt like we were having some good dialogue there. Really, kind of, I felt like I was making progress on a lot of my thoughts. But if you haven't subscribed to Dino yet, please do so. I'm going to leave the description of the YouTube channel and his Twitter account below. He's got a great channel. Like I said, he does a lot of really cool kind of snapshots of time with, his diaries. And then also, has a lot of really cool, unique videos. So please go subscribe and check his channel out. And yeah, man, anytime you want to come back on, even if it's just a kind of a chill chat, let me know.
Dude, I appreciate that very much. Thank you for this opportunity. This is super cool. And yeah, I would love to just grab a glass of whiskey with you and Danny and Sean one day and just
Come,
chat,
man.
man. This is super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope that this was helpful for your audience. And I look forward to just getting more involved with the community. I'll be moving pretty soon here, and I'll have a lot more personal space. And that's when I really plan on just changing up the videos a little bit, being a lot more persistent with it, and then also getting in on some of the Twitter spaces, and just getting more involved and getting to know people better. And just case in point, man, you're an awesome guy. I've been watching your videos for a long time, and it's super cool to actually get to chat with you. You're like a celeb to me. So
Oh yeah, I wish.
this is really cool, man. I appreciate
Sweet.
that you bring people on and give them a voice, and I hope the community grows stronger because of it.
Yeah, that's sweet, man. I appreciate that. And I'm no celeb, but it's great giving somebody like yourself a voice because then it makes me look better. And that's the whole reason why I do it, right? Is like there's so many brilliant people in our community. And it's like we need to hear these perspectives. We need to like learn more and be wiser. And it's like if you're just hearing me say the same things again, like I always said, like Todd's a grail, like you're gonna be like, Chad, fuck off. Give me something fresh, bro.
I need
So
a fresh voice.
yeah,
Yeah. Fresh
exactly.
perspective. No,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that's what makes your channel stand out. Having the thought-provoking conversations that you facilitate and the guests that you have on. And I really like what the drop Veve, Ryan
Oh yeah.
and Jackie Moon, like how they did that space, and to hear all the OGs come in, and like that was awesome. And I think that's what's going to reinvigorate this community and
Right.
make people want to come out and get to know each other, so
Right,
really
man.
cool. Keep up the great work, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, boss. Yeah, it was great to have you on. And hey, man, we'll see you next time with that whiskey glass. So
Sounds
sounds like a
good.
plan.
All
Take care,
right,
buddy.
brother.
Thanks
Thank you.
again. Thank you.